Every good story has an intro. Scenes where you meet the characters, see the heroes, the people you feel good about, see the characters you might not feel great about, the ones you feel off about, the eventual villains. Every story sets the pace at the beginning. Is it a suspense? Is it a thriller? A horror? It sets the timeline, the location. And just like every good story has scenes where we introduce characters, every sales call has an intro where we introduce ourselves and set the agenda for the call, set expectation, introduce the prospect to the pace that we're going to be taking the call at, and if done well, in the intro, we reduce sales resistance. Almost like viewers to a story sitting back in their seats at the theater because they know this one's going to be a good one. Today, we're going to go over your intro, make sure that your first impression is spot on. We have the modern day suit, we look the part, now it's time to act the part. It's going to be a spicy one. Let's dive in. Roll intro. Introing a lesson on intros, the irony. We'll get into it though. This one's gonna be short and sweet, and that's because the intro on a sales call is short and sweet. This is the shortest stage of the sales process, of the sales framework. At 2 or 3 minutes, we're not really in the intro for very long, but just because it's the shortest stage of the sales call does not mean it's by any means the least important. See, the intro is where we set impression. Are we the hero of the story? Are we the hero of the sales call? Or are we the villain that they just don't feel right about? With only 2 or 3 minutes to set that precedent, we have to be tactical with our time. We can't elongate the intro. We only have 30, 45 minutes on a sales call to work with. We're not a screenplay. We don't have a 120-minute budget for this conversation. So we can't elongate this. We have to get right to it. And the way we do that is by making sure we have 2 objectives in every single intro that we have. The first is to humanize ourselves. In the intro, we want to show the prospect that we're not a pre-programmed AI robot there to take their money, which is kind of what they expect. We want to show them that outside of the sales call, we're humans just like them, that we have lives, that we have interests, that we are people. The second objective is to set the agenda of the call. And that's it. It's very simple. The intro is one of the only stages of a sales call that truly is as simply said as it is done. But let's break it down. Introing this lesson on intros, we're going to lead by example and set the agenda on 3 main topics. The first thing we're going to chat on today is rapport. The second is small talk. And the third is setting the agenda, kind of like we're doing right now. Diving in, topic number 1 is rapport. See, most reps think that the intro is the intro in rapport phase of a sales call. And they think that in the intro, we're trying to build rapport with our prospects. But they're wrong. They're dead wrong. Anyone who teaches that is wrong. And that's because you can't build rapport in 2 or 3 minutes. The definition of rapport is a harmonious relationship between 2 parties where they both understand each other's feelings. Trying to build a harmonious relationship where you understand someone else's feelings within 2 minutes is like meeting somebody and trying to befriend them quickly because there's something to your advantage about doing so. It's disingenuous, it's fake, and it will always come across as so. And so trying to build rapport in a sales call in the first 2 minutes of meeting somebody is almost like avoiding the elephant in the room. Imagine how strange it would be if you were sitting in a library with an elephant in it and somebody walked in and just ignored the fact. It would seem off, odd, almost comedic. But that's most reps. Most reps act like there's not an elephant in the room. The elephant in the room being that you're there for a reason, that the prospect thinks you're there to sell them something, to take their money. And so the way we approach topic number 2, which is small talk, is by first understanding that rapport is not built in the intro. That the only purpose and goal of the small talk is to humanize ourselves and show them that we do recognize that there's an elephant in the room. And to almost reduce their resistance by showing them we're human beings outside of the sales conversation. Rapport comes through proper discovery. We're going to get there in the next lesson of this phase. But for now, if you're coming in with a preconnotation of rapport is built in the intro, I just want you to toss that right now. You're setting yourself up for failure. You're the person coming into a room, avoiding the elephant. Topic number 2 is small talk. And now we know we're not having small talk to try to build rapport. And so again, why do we do it? It's because we want to show to the prospect that we're humans. I'm going to repeat that like 6 or 7 times throughout this entire lesson because it's very important that we remember that. The only reason we have small talk is to show that we're humans. We're not trying to build rapport. We're not trying to get them to like us. We're not trying to become their friend. We're just trying to show them that we're not an AI programmed robot there to collect their cash. We're there to show them that we're humans. And the reason we want to do that is because humans want to do business with humans. Business to business really comes down to human to human. If you look at any big brands, even Apple, there's always a face on the brand, whether it's Steve Jobs or Bill Gates from Microsoft or someone that humanizes the brand. And so on a sales call, we're just trying to do the same thing. We're trying to humanize the business. We're trying to show them that we're not of business. We're not AI robots, we're humans, and we're here to help. And the way we humanize ourselves in small talk is by keeping it minimal. My approach to small talk is super simple. If I'm selling something domestically or internationally, I'll ask one of two questions. Where in the world are you, or where in the country are you? And then from there, I'll ask a follow-up, or I'll say a quick little story. If I've never been where they are, I'll say, oh, I've never been there, but my partner is a huge foodie. Is there anything we should get if we go? And now they're talking about food, and they know I have a partner, and I'm a human now outside of it. Or I'll share a quick memory. If someone says I'm from Austin, Texas, I'll say, the last time I was there, square dancing at this really cool little hole in the bar. Love where you come from, love Texas. I'm showing that I'm a human in both cases. I'm opening them up. We're creating some common ground on Texas or their location they're opening, but that's small talk. It's really 1, 2, maybe 3 questions on my end. Another route that you can go down is you can give a compliment. Hey, love the background, love the room that you're in. Is that your office? That's small talk though. It's minimal, couple questions. What we're trying to avoid is what most reps do, and that is go maximal, right? Getting into personal questions like, hey, tell me about the highlight of your day, or tell me about the highlight of your week. What's the best thing to happen to you this week? Or, hey, quick question. I just like to get to know people better. What's the coolest thing about you? I've seen all of these questions, and to me, they're so corny. And I think even you hearing them, you probably think the same thing. And the reason they're corny is because the prospect knows you don't care. If I ever asked a prospect, hey, what's the highlight of your week been? Their response would be, bro, there's an elephant in the room. Why are you asking me about my week? And I would in turn be like, you're right, I don't fucking know, I don't care. The best way to go about small talk in a sales conversation is keep it minimal. Less is more. 1, 2, maybe 3 questions, a compliment, whatever it is, 90 seconds top in small talk. And then we switch to topic number 3, which is setting the agenda. Setting the agenda is literally one of the most important components of a sales call throughout the entire frame of a call. The entire conversation comes down to a handful of nuggets. This is one of them. When I train reps, I tell them there are really only 3 things that you ever need scripted in a sales call. The agenda set is the first. See, most reps, they fuck up candidly when they're setting the agenda, and it's because they don't understand why they're doing what they're supposed to be doing or what the goal of an agenda set is. And so let's break down topic number 3 into 3 subtopics. The what, the why, and the how. What are we trying to do? Why are we trying to do it? How do we approach doing it? Luckily, when you get the what and the why, the how comes easily. And in this case, the what and the why are pretty simple to understand. What we're trying to do when we set the agenda is give proper expectation to the prospect on what the sales call is going to be like. Why we do that is because when people have clarity on what to expect, their resistance lowers. We talked about in the first module how people don't like patterns being interrupted. And the reason they like patterns is because they want clarity on what's to come. When we set a proper agenda, prospects have clarity on what the process of the call is going to look like. There's no unknown about the call. We tell them everything. We kind of put our cards on the table. And when we do that, they feel comfortable proceeding. They let their barriers down. They lower their resistance because our cards on the table. They know what we have. They know what we're trying to do. So the what is setting proper expectation for the call. The reason that we do that, the why, is because it lowers sales resistance. Lowering sales resistance allows us to have an easier conversation with someone. It allows us to get better answers to the questions that we get. It allows us to ask questions that might be personal, that they wouldn't normally share, but they feel comfortable sharing because they have lowered barriers. The how we do that is by setting an agenda that tells them every stage of the call. Now, the ways that we can set agendas are different based on whether or not we're doing a 1-call close, a 2-call close, if this is a multi-step sales process with different decision makers. So I'll go through a couple of them, but as long as you understand the what, the why, and the how, then realistically you can always adapt this to however you need. Going back to the what we're gonna do, or the how we do it, is we wanna tell them every single stage of that call. And so in a 1-call close, the agenda set would look something like this. Hey, I want you to know I've done my fair share of these. And so if it's cool with you, I kind of want to find out more about where you are, what you're trying to do, where your goals are, what's keeping you from getting there. If I actually see something we can help you with, then I'll break it down. I'll walk you through everything A to Z. I'll answer your questions. And if you like what you hear, then at the end of this, I'll make you an offer. Is that fair enough? See, in a 1-call close, what I'm doing is I'm getting into discovery, and then I'm transitioning, and then I'm pitching, and then I'm closing. And in that agenda set, I'm saying I want to find out more about you, where you want to go, what your goals are, what's keeping you from getting there. I'm getting my discovery done. If I actually see something we can help you with, then I'll break it down. I'll walk you through everything A to Z, pitch and transition. And if you like what you hear at the end of this, then I'll make you an offer. Is that fair enough? Close. And so I'm setting the agenda on what to expect throughout the call. In a 2-call close, it might look something like this. If I'm getting into an intro call and not selling somebody on that call, I'll say, hey, I want you to know this is not a sales call. I'm not going to be asking you for a credit card at the end of this. Today, I just want to find out more about where you are, where you're trying to go, and what's keeping you from getting there. If I actually see something we can help you with, then I'll take it back to the team and I'll make a custom plan for you. And then I would love to schedule something else out so that we can actually have a conversation on it. Is that cool? Later in this phase, in the module on closing, we'll even get into clarity and how clarity is necessary for someone to feel comfortable purchasing. Human beings want clarity on what's to come because it makes them comfortable. We talked about patterns, right? And so the goal of the agenda is to do just that, to show them what's coming so that they feel comfortable. And if they feel comfortable, if they sit back in that seat, sales resistance goes down. And as we get into the next modules, we'll understand why sales resistance being as minimal as possible is so important, because it gives us leverage. It gives us abilities to ask things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to ask. And whether it's a 1-call close, a 2-call close, or a multi-step close, it also sets the actionable that we're looking to accomplish at the end of the call. Let's take the 1-call close frame. If you like what you hear, I'll make you an offer at the end. Is that fair? And the reason we say that is because think about how many prospects come to a call not knowing if they should expect an offer or not, if that's when they're going to get sold to or not. Sales reps don't think about this, but prospects don't always know if there's an offer coming on a sales call. And that's because they've been on sales calls where they get offered right away, and they've been on sales calls where they don't get offered for 4 or 5 conversations. And so if we're having a sales conversation and the goal is a 1-call close, setting expectation that there might be an offer at the end of this is incredibly beneficial. It gives them clarity. It frames the entire conversation around the fact that there will be a decision at the end of the call. In the first module of this phase, we talked about one of the goals being help prospects make a decision. One of the ways that we do that is by giving them the actionable that's going to come at the end of the call, whether it's an offer or setting up a second call or setting up a second call with someone else that works at the company in a multi-step, multi-level decision-making process. There's always something at the end of the call that we're trying to close on. Sometimes we're trying to close the deal. Sometimes we're trying to close the call. Sometimes we're trying to close someone else being on the call for a multi-step process. But setting the agenda and the small talk, the intro of a call, it tells prospects what to come. It humanizes you as a sales rep. It makes them realize that they can be comfortable throughout this process, that they're going to be well taken care of, and overall, they can reduce their barriers, they can lower their sales resistance. And ultimately what it does is it sets the scene, just like in our story, in our movie, so that we can have a good sales conversation, so that they can sit back in their seat, have some popcorn, and know that they're going to be taken care of, and that this is going to be a good conversation for them to have. It's going to be a good movie to watch. But that's the intro. Like I said, short and sweet, simply said and simply done. As long as you understand what we're trying to do, I think you're going to be more than capable of doing it. At the bottom of this, we'll have different scripts that you can actually use to set the agenda in different types of calls that you're having. The reason that we went over the what and the why is so that you can take these scripts and tailor them to something that fits your needs, your situations, your offer. Just like the intro of a sales call feeds into the stage of discovery on a sales call, so does the series in this lesson. Our next lesson is on discovery, going into building those anchor points that we mentioned before and dismantling objections to the questions that we ask. Discovery is personally my favorite part of a sales call. I'm excited to get into it with you guys, and I will see you there. I will see you in our next lesson. But until then, happy hunting. Welcome back again for a second, because I actually just recapped mentally on the entire lesson that we just shot. And as I was having lunch, I realized I don't think I gave you everything on that I need. Specifically, one thing I didn't talk about is kind of the persona that we have to have on an intro, the vibe, the atmosphere that we want to set. See, one of the things that we talked about before in Principles of Sales, or in Module 2, is that we want to create chaos on the chessboard, right? And really what I meant was be different. Different is better than better. What I meant by that is that when we're coming into a sales call, we have a stigma that we're fighting, the stigma that I talked about in the very first video of this entire series, The Honorable Close. And so the first thing we want to do on the intro, the first way to be that character that gives them the good hero vibe, if you will, is for us to be the exact opposite of what they expect. See, they expect that gold-chained, gonna close them and smirk about it later salesperson. And so if we can be the opposite of that, if we can be humble and not highly energetic, but calm at the beginning of a call, if we can be someone that they immediately talk to and they're like, oh wow, this is not at all what I expected a sales rep to sound like, then we're putting ourselves on a really good leg right out of the front. So, but one of the biggest things you can do in the intro that's an intangible of the intro is do the exact opposite of what I'm doing right now. Just be low energy. Not low energy, but be moderate energy. Be calm, be humble. Be reserved. Don't be overly talkative. Don't be overly excited. The last thing you want to do is say, I am so excited to talk to you. I'm so excited to go over all this stuff, because that's what they expect. Instead, act like you're speaking to a friend. You're happy that you're having the conversation, but you're not ecstatic and overly joyful and overly optimistic and high energy. You're just speaking to a friend. That's what we're going for on the intro. The other thing we want to do on the intro that I talked about is ask them questions. And I was even thinking about why that's so important. And it's because as I've coached thousands of people, if I really recap on this, what a lot of people tend to do on the intro, what a lot of sales reps tend to do on the intro is give a quick blurb on who they are. After I recorded the first part of this lesson, after I stepped away from the camera, I was thinking about why it's so important for me to talk about small talk and why it's so important for me to teach that. See, something for you to recognize about me teaching is that I also have to look at the why, what, how. I have to look at how to teach you something and what I'm supposed to try to convey to you, but sometimes I forget why I'm teaching in the first place. See, I've trained thousands of reps, and something that happens is I almost unconsciously realize where a lot of people fault and where a lot of people trip. And not only the fact that a lot of reps come on and they're overly energetic, they're overly hyped, they're overly optimistic at the beginning of the call, they're just so overzealous that they are exactly what prospects expect. They're the sales rep that prospects expect to come across, so they're not different, and thus they're not better. But on top of that, I also see a lot of reps get into this weird background kind of stage of an intro, where they get on and they're like, hey, I want you to know about me. So my name is Paul, I'm 28. They blabber about themselves, and it's the beginning of the call. The prospect doesn't fucking care. And instantly you're putting off the prospect doing exactly what the prospect expects. But so many reps have been trained on that. It's kind of twofold. Right now, I just really want to stress what not to do because a lot of the intro is just people fucking up. Apologize for the language, but it's true. Number one is people just expect from the stigma of sales that they're supposed to be overzealous and over energetic, but you're not. You don't have to do that. If anything, we want to fight that by being the opposite. Again, create chaos on the board, be different. But number two is just understand that prospects don't care about who you are. Until you prove that you're worth knowing, if you will, and you'll get to that in discovery. We'll break that down in the next lesson. But until you prove that you're somebody worth them listening to, they don't care about who you are or where you're from or your background or your age or anything about you. I talked about in small talk keeping it minimal, and that's because minimal less is more. And so in that, I just want to make sure you know, don't get into your background and who you are and don't feel the need to introduce yourself. I know it's called an intro, but it's not introduction of yourself. It's just introduction of your impression. Quickly impression. Less is more. Keep it simple. Small talk. Not large talk, not big talk, small talk. And don't be overzealous. Don't be overly energetic. Don't be in front of their face, super excited. Be humble, be calm, be relaxed. Be different than what they expect. Introduce chaos on the board. I thought that was important to note. I will see you in the next lesson. When I say it again, happy hunting.